Friends, friends, Romans, countrymen. I would like to introduce you to the biological and adoptive family lines of the first 5 Roman emperors. Now, to start, we should probably go over the Mac Daddy of the cell, because it is Gaius Julius Caesar, not Julius Caesar, although they shared the same name. Gaius Julius Caesar, who was a politician and statesman, who was pretty unpopular actually because he took the wrong side in the Civil War. He was obviously the father of 2 very prominent children, Julius Caesar and Julius Minor. Julius Caesar, the more well-known of the two, was a very popular statesman, as well as politician, governor, dictator for life. Some even say he was imperator or king of Rome, really. And Julius Caesar, well known for his campaigns in Gaul and his civil wars that were, caused by him. He was actually not so impressive in the biological standpoint because he didn't produce a son, really. Or he did, just it was adoptive or illegitimate. His daughter, who we know for a fact was legitimate and biological, was Julius Caesarus. She was married off to Pompey the Great, another popular statesman, well known for fighting against Julius Caesar later on in his life in the Civil War. He was beheaded, and Julius Caesar actually refused to see his, decapitated head. So that's interesting. But he had an illegitimate son named Caesarion, or nicknamed Caesarion, born to one Cleopatra of Egypt. Cleopatra VII, the popular Cleopatra, the well-known Cleopatra, and, Julius Caesar, after his siege of, more like the city of Alexandria's siege on him, took a tour of Egypt on the Nile with Cleopatra, and 9 months later, Caesarion happened. He is not on this hierarchical chart, however, because he was really not considered Julius Caesar's son. Anyway, sorry for that droning noise if you can hear that. His adoptive son, who he actually adopted posthumously, was Augustus or Octavius. He was not his biological son, as I said before. He was adoptive. He was actually adopted in this last will and testament of Julius Caesar, which is interesting. And if we go back to Julius Minor, this is another thing. Julius Minor's grandnephew, if you would mind, taking a look down right over here, is also Augustus Octavius. This is where it gets confusing because Julius Caesar was indeed, in addition to his adoptive father, Augustus's granduncle. This is mostly thought to be the case because Augustus was the most popular of Julius Caesar's potential heirs, and Addie was pulling his mother, daughter of Julius Minor, was pulling a lot of strings to get Julius Caesar to adopt him, and it's thought by some historians that Augustus actually offered some intimate favors in exchange for getting adopted to Julius Caesar. So, looking at we've went over Octavius. We will talk about his bloodline in a second. If we just jump back to Julius Minor, we can see that her daughter, Adia, was married to one Gaius Octavius. Not Octavius. Octavius was also named Augustus. We've went over this multiple times now, but I'll just repeat it because it is very confusing. Gaius Octavius was another popular statesman. He was a senator and a military man, really. I don't know too much about him, so I'm really going to gloss over him, but he was the biological father of Augustus Octavius, Octavia the Elder. I'm not sure if Octavia the Younger is his daughter, but certainly Addie is his daughter. They might have gotten divorced, which was actually decently common in ancient Rome, but that's another topic, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. So, yeah, he was the father of Octavius. He really didn't mind Julius Caesar adopting him because it was the highest honor to have the dictator for life adopt your son, and not to mention it was posthumously, so he wasn't going to disrespect a dead guy's last will and testament. So now, if we just, fast forward a bit, Augustus Octavius, obviously his nickname Augustus, or his actual title Augustus, meant the revered one in Latin. a title afforded to him by the Senate, though it's thought that he forced the Senate to afford him that title. He was really the first emperor. He took power in, I believe, 14 BCE? Or no, 27 BCE maybe? One of the two. I get those dates mixed up a lot. That's either the day he died or the day he took power. So anyway, his son, Tiberius, was the second emperor of Rome, known to be very shrewd and kind of not very well liked, really. He was a military man as well, but this was not by choice, this was by family. Really, he was a very angry man. He punished a lot of people for stuff they may or may not have done, much like other early emperors, but still, he was particularly unliked. In fact, he retired from his emperorship, though he was still officially the emperor, and there were some accounts of him getting certain favors from children. So I'm not going to go into that because that is inappropriate. But his brother, also the son of Augustus Octavius, much more popular than Tiberius himself, though not the emperor, was Nero Claudius Drusus or Nero Claudius Germanicus. Nero Claudius Germanicus was the father of one Germanicus. They both were well liked and campaigned in Germania. Now, Tiberius had a child named Drusus Julius Caesar. This is unrelated to Nero Claudius Drusus. Though Germanicus was the adopted son of Tiberius, Drusus Julius Caesar is just a nephew of Nero Claudius Drusus. So yeah, we don't need to go into that. Augustus Octavius also had a daughter named Julia the Elder. This is getting very confusing, so I won't go over who Sextus and Marcus Aurelius were because they were very unimportant, at least in my opinion. So if we follow Germanicus and really his whole bloodline, we'll actually get to the third emperor, Caligula. Now I've talked about these three guys and these guys, but Nero Claudius Drusus Germanicus actually had another son, one Claudius. It might ring a bell considering he was the fourth emperor. Yeah, this is where it gets really confusing. So bear with me for a second. I'm just gonna hover back to this side of it all. Just gonna follow that for a while. So Tiberius bore two sons, not really bore. His wife bore two sons. Germanicus versus Julius Caesar, of course. Now I'm gonna follow Germanicus's bloodline. Germanicus was the father of Caligula and Agrippina the Younger. Caligula was not his real name, of course. It was a nickname merely, meaning little boots, because Caligula, also sometimes deemed the Mad Emperor, was he grew up in military camps most of his young life because his father Germanicus was on campaign in Germania, Turkey, Gaul at times, even though that was well solidified Roman territory, and so his sister, Caligula's sister, Agrippina the Younger, was the wife of Claudius. Yeah. She was, sorry about that noise. Yeah, so she was the granddaughter of Nero Claudius Drusus Germanicus, and she married her, this is a bit icky, she married her uncle Claudius, and together they bore a son and a daughter. Not a daughter. I'm not sure if they bore a daughter, really. They gave birth to Nero, who was also an emperor. Right now, I'm going to focus on Caligula's children, Tiberius Gemellus and Nymphidius Sabinus. He also had a daughter, I believe, but I will not go over that right now, because she was relatively unimportant. Not unimportant per se, but she wasn't really as important as Tiberius Gemellus and Nymphidius Sabinus, who were also little unknown, also by me. If you want to learn more about them, I would suggest looking into them personally or talking with a more learned historian or someone who has a degree in history, because obviously I don't. And so, yeah, they were both statesmen, I believe. So back to Claudius and Agrippina the Younger. This couple was insane. Agrippina the Younger is really the person who elevated Nero to emperorship, though Claudius was actually a little mentally ill. He was a little slow in the head. That's why he wasn't emperor, even though he was supposed to be emperor before Caligula. He just had too many defects. I shouldn't call them defects, disabilities to really gain power completely. So his wife, Agrippina the Younger, also his niece, very weird, I know, but incest wasn't too uncommon in ancient times. Agrippina the Younger is really the person who ran the empire during this time, although for appearances, Claudius obviously was the emperor. Now, Agrippina the Younger bore a son, Nero, thought to be the richest person in Rome, also thought to be one of the most insane people in Rome. Now, there's a myth about Nero that's almost universally, by historians at least, thought to be untrue, where towards the end of his reign, the burning of Rome happened, and it said that he fiddled over the burning of Rome. He obviously did that. In fact, he probably wasn't even in Rome when the fire broke out. He was in his countryside estate, and he rushed back to the city to help with the relief. But that just proves how unliked he was. He actually was later forced to commit suicide by the Senate and the Praetorian Guard, I believe, for unrelated reasons. But yeah, he was not very well liked emperor either by the Senate or the people. Not like the Senate had any power by this point. So yeah. Also, just to end this thing off, Caligula actually tried to make his horse a senator just to piss off the Senate at the time. That's a little interesting story. I may go over it in future articles or videos, but it's not really a story for right now. So Nero also had a daughter, Claudia Augusta. I'm not going to go over her too much, even though she'll really end this off, because I don't know too much about her, to be honest. But yes, I will upload these two charts, view only, to my blog, G-Rated History. And well, I hope you learned and enjoyed from this video. Goodbye, and well, have fun with history.